Hello everyone, today we're going to review the first part of Unit 4, which was all about systems of equations. So the first thing that we did was learn how to write systems. So for our first question, it says write a system of equations that represents the tables below. So when you're writing an equation, think of slope-intercept form. So y equals mx plus b. I need two things to write that line. I need m and I need b. So I need slope and I need y-intercept. So starting with the first table for line u, let's find the slope of that line. This could be x1, y1, x2, and y2. So we're going to plug those numbers into the slope formula. So on top, I'll have y2 minus y1, so that's 0 minus negative 2 over x2 minus x1, 1 minus 0. So when you put this into the calculator, you get 2. So I've officially found my slope. The other thing I need to find is my y-intercept, so b. So when you look at the table, look for where x equals 0. So for us, it's that first point. So this right here represents my y-intercept. So b equals negative 2. So now that I have both of those numbers, remember our format, y equals mx plus b, I'm going to fill in the two numbers that I have. So y equals 2x minus 2. But now I need to go and find the equation for the other table. So same thing. First, let's find our slope. So we need 2 points. Let's make this one be x1 and y1 and x2, y2. So let's start off by finding our slope. So we need to subtract our y's on the top. So 4 minus 5. On the bottom, we need to subtract our x's. 0 minus negative 2. So when you put this into the calculator, you get negative 1/2. So that's my slope. Now I need to go and find our y-intercept. Look through the table for x equals 0, and that point represents your y-intercept. So for us, it's that 4. So if I follow the format y equals mx plus b, this line would be y equals negative 1/2 x plus 4. So our system would have those two lines that I have boxed in. Okay, now let's look at the next one. The graph of lines f and g are shown on the grid. Write the system of equations best represented by this graph. So if you notice on the graph, it labels each line. So this first line where the f is at, and then this is our second line with g. So let's start by looking at line f. So same as before, I need to know my y-intercept and I need to find slope. So we're going to pick 2 points on that line. So I'm going to zoom in so we can see it better. We're going to pick 2 perfect points that are going exactly through the corner. So I can do, let's say this point right here, that's negative 2 comma 4. And let's do this point down here. That's 4 comma 1. So we're going to treat this as x1, y1 and x2, y2. Let's start by finding the slope of line f. So I'm going to write f here so I know I'm working on that line. So we want y2 minus y1 on the top, so that'll be 1 minus 4. Then x2 minus x1 on the bottom, so 4 minus negative 2. So when you put this into the calculator, you get negative 1 over 2. Okay, now if you look at that line closely, I need to find my y-intercept. So looking at line F, I see that it crosses the y-axis right here. So that number represents B. So for us, that's at positive 3. So to finish writing my equation in slope-intercept form, I would have y equals negative 1/2 x plus 3. But on the test, I believe it's going to ask you to go all the way to standard form. So I can't leave it like this. Standard form means that x and y need to both be on the same side of the equal sign. So let's start by moving this x over. And we're going to do that by adding 1/2 x to both sides. So that leaves me with 1/2 x plus y is equal to 3. Now with standard form, you're not allowed to have any fractions. So the way you fix it is whatever is at the bottom of your fraction, so for us it's at 2, you multiply the whole equation by that number. And when you do that, 2 times 1/2 gives you 1. So this is 1x. We're not going to write the 1. Then 2 times y gives you 2y equals, and lastly, 2 times 3 gives me 6. So that's the equation in standard form. But that was only for one line. That was for line F. We need to go back and find the equation for line G. Okay, so you see this G. Now I want to take a look at this line. So let's use a different color so it's easier to see. So I need 2 points on that line. So taking a look, I want perfect points that are going exactly through the corner. I can use this point right here. That's the point 1, negative 1. And right here where they intersect would be a good point as well. And that's the point 2, 2. So I'm going to use this as x1, y1, and x2, y2. Let's start by finding the slope of line G. Okay, so for line G, m equals, I need my difference of the y's. So y2 minus y1, that's negative 1 minus 2. And then on the bottom, the difference of the x's. So 1 minus 2. Okay, so if you put this into the calculator, you should get positive 3. Now let's look for our y-intercept. So I'm going to look at line G. Here's my y-axis, and line G hits right here at the negative 4. So that's B for that line. So now that I have these two numbers, I can write my equation in slope-intercept form. So that's y equals 3x minus 4. Okay, but again, let's go all the way to standard form so that we can keep practicing. So that means that I need to move the 3x over to the other side. So let's subtract 3x, subtract 3x. That gives me negative 3x, positive y is equal to negative 4. So another rule with standard form is that the number in front, that very first number, is not allowed to be negative. So in order to fix that negative, we're going to multiply the entire equation by negative 1. So the way that helps us is that negative times a negative makes this positive 3. And now negative 1 times positive y is negative y. And last, negative 1 times negative 4 becomes positive 4. Okay, so that's the system of equations represented in the graph, and we went all the way to standard form on that one. Let's look at our next problem. Okay, so on this one, we're going to read it and highlight important information at the same time. Okay, so this one says, a concession stand at a baseball game sells hot dogs and boxes of popcorn. Justin buys a total of 10 snacks. The number of popcorn boxes he buys is 5 less than twice as many hot dogs. Write the system of equations that models this situation if he bought H hot dogs and P boxes of popcorn. So they even tell us what letters to use. H for hot dogs, P for popcorn. So on this one, it's a little bit easier than the others because you don't have to solve anything. They just want you to write the system that goes with it. So using H for hot dogs and P for popcorn. That first part that I highlighted, it says that he bought a total of 10 snacks, but all they sell are hot dogs and popcorn. So I don't know how many of each he got, but all his hot dogs and all his popcorns all together equals a total of 10. So that equation is going to be hot dogs plus popcorn equals 10 snacks. Okay, the next part of it says, the number of popcorn boxes he buys is 5 less than twice as many hot dogs. So it's telling you specifically popcorn is. So anytime you have that is, that's an equal sign. So popcorn is 5 less than twice as many hot dogs. So starting with this part, twice as many hot dogs, anytime you do something twice, that means 2 times, right? Times 2. So since it's twice the hot dogs, we'll have 2H. But then it also says that you want 5 less than that. So less means that we're going to subtract. Minus 5. So that's the system that goes with that story problem. Okay, our next problem says Dominica has a total of 17 coins in her pocket. All of them are nickels and dimes. So that's important. I'm going to highlight that. The value of the coins is $1.10. Using the following equations to represent the situation, how many nickels does Dominica have? Nickels. So the good thing about this problem is they already gave us the equations, and I think it's kind of obvious to see that they're using the letter N to represent nickels and the letter D to represent dimes. So with this one, we're going to have to actually solve this system to answer their question. When you're solving a system like this, you need it for one equation to have the letter by itself. So in all of them, N and D are on the same side, N and D are on the same side. We need to fix that. Always look for the equation where there's no coefficient in front. That's going to be the easiest one to change. So let me rewrite that. 17 equals N plus D. And just pick a letter. So I'm going to pick D. I want D to be by itself. So that means that I need to subtract N from both sides. And that would get me 17 minus N equals D. So now that D is by itself, I'm going to look at the second equation, find where D is at, and we're going to plug in this expression right there. Okay, so let me start solving. I'm going to rewrite that second equation. 1.10 equals 0.05 N plus 0.10, but instead of D, I'm going to write 17 minus N. Okay, now let's solve for N. So the first part kind of stays the same. 110 equals 0.05 N. But from here, since that 0.10 is right next to the parentheses, we're going to multiply it in. 0.10 times 17 gives me 1.7, and then 0.10 times negative n is minus 0.10 n. Next, we want to combine our like terms. So our first term and our third term both have n's, so that means that I can put them together. So let's rewrite this. 110 equals 0.05 minus 0.10 gives me negative 0.05 n plus 1.7. Now let's move the 1.7 to the other side. So subtract 1.7, that way it can cancel, and I'm going to do that same thing to the other side. And now that gives me negative 0.6 is equal to negative 0.05 n. If I want n to be by itself, I'm going to divide by negative 0.05. So negative divided by negative gives me a positive number. That turns out to be positive 12 equals n. So I officially found out that n equals 12. So I'm going to go back to my question, and it's asking me how many nickels does Dominica have? So I can actually already stop because I found out, because I solved for n, that she has 12 nickels. So she has 12 nickels. Okay, let's move on. Our next problem is also about money. Let's take a look. It says a bag contains 27 coins consisting of only dimes and quarters. The total amount of money in the bag is $5.10. How many dimes are in the bag? So same thing as before, we're only looking for one letter, only this time they didn't give us any equations. We're going to have to figure out the equations on our own. So let's keep it simple, and let's just say that the letter D represents dimes and the letter Q represents quarters. So now let's write our system. The first equation goes with the first sentence, 27 coins that are all dimes and quarters. So all of our dimes and all of our quarters all together equals 27. So we need to add dimes plus quarters equals 27. Okay, the second part that it tells us is the total amount of money in the bag is $5.10. So all these coins are worth $5.10. So you need to know how much each type of coin is worth. So a dime is worth 10 cents, but you have to write it like money. So it would be 0.10 D. A quarter is worth 25 cents, so 0.25 Q is equal to, they told us $5.10. Okay, so same as the one previous to this, when you're solving, one of your equations has to be set up to where one of the variables is by itself. Look for a letter that doesn't have a coefficient. So in our first equation, neither one of them has a coefficient. Let's just pick one of the letters to solve. Let's say that I want Q to be by itself. So I would have to move D to the other side. So D plus Q equals 27. Let's subtract D from both sides. And that gives me Q is equal to 27 minus D. So now I'm going to take this equation that I just found, and I'm going to plug it into the second equation right where the Q is at, so right in this spot. So that would be 0.10 D plus 0.25, but instead of Q, we're going to write 27 minus D. Okay, and then equals $5.10. Okay, so now let's distribute 0.25 times 27. You could just type that into the calculator and we get $6.75, and then get 0.25 times negative d is minus 0.25d is equal to $5.10. Let's combine our like terms. So the first one and the third one both have d's. When we put that together, 0.10 minus 0.25, that gives me negative 0.15d. The rest of the equation stays the same. Now let's subtract 675 from both sides. So that gives me negative 0.15d is equal to negative 1.65. Then let's divide by negative 0.15. A negative divided by a negative is going to give me a positive, and this is 11. So let's look back at the question that they're asking us. It said, how many dimes are in the bag? Well, we just figured out that D equals 11. So for this one, there are 11 dimes in the bag. Okay, now let's look at our next one. It says, Alice likes to go to main event to play laser tag and climb the rock wall each Saturday. Instead of purchasing the play pass, Alice pays for each activity separately. This week, Alice played laser tag 3 times and climbed the rock wall once, spending $13. So that's important. Then the next bullet says, last week Alice played laser tag twice and climbed the rock wall twice, spending $18. Using the information provided, how much does main event charge in dollars to climb the rock wall? So again, this is another one where we're going to have to solve, but we have to write our own equations. Each bullet point is going to be its own equation. So for the first one, well, before we write, let's say what our two things are. See how in each one it talks about laser tag and rock wall, laser tag and rock wall. So those are the two things that I need to solve for. So just that I can remember, I'm going to use X to represent laser tag and Y to represent the rock wall. So for our first equation, I have, she played laser tag 3 times, so that would be 3x. And then she climbed the rock wall once, so that means just 1y, and paid $13. Then the second bullet says she played laser tag twice, so that's 2x, climbed the rock wall twice, so 2y, and this time she spent $18. So those are my two equations. So in order to start solving, I need to solve one of them for just a single letter. When you look at the variables, this y doesn't have a coefficient because she only climbed it once. So it's going to be easiest to solve for that y. So over here to the side, I'm going to write it. To get y by itself, I would need to subtract the 3x from both sides of the equal sign, and that gives me y is equal to 13 minus 3x. Now that I have that equation, I'm going to look at the other bullet point, the other equation, find my y, and this equation, we're going to plug it in right there. So if I start writing this, I have 2x plus 2, but instead of y, we're going to put in 13 minus 3x, and then continue, it says equals 18. So 2x, let's multiply that 2 in. So plus 26 minus 6x equals 18. Now combine like terms. This one and this one both have x's, so let's put them together. 2 minus 6 is negative 4. Subtract 26 from both sides. So negative 4x is equal to negative 8. Divide by negative 4. And x equals positive 2. So if I look back at my notes that I wrote down, x is laser tag. So that means that she played laser tag, cost $2. But our question is asking us, how much does main event charge to climb the rock wall? So I need to solve for y. That's the specific question they're asking. But now that I have x equals 2, it's going to be a lot easier because I could just plug it into one of my equations. What I'm going to do is use the equation that I have up here, and I'm going to plug in x equals 2 to that equation. So y equals 13 minus 3, but we're plugging in our 2. So y equals 13 minus 6, which means that y equals 7. So if they wanted rock wall, and according to my little notes, y is rock wall, that means this is the answer that they want. It costs $7 to climb the rock wall. Problem. What is the y value of the solution to this system of equations? So no story, they just want you to solve, and they want the y value. So that's important. Make sure you look for the y. So looking at my equations, it looks like we got lucky because already one of the equations has x by itself. So I'm going to plug that in where I see x in the other equation. I'm going to plug it in right there. So 4, 2y minus 4, minus 3y equals 9. Now let's continue solving. 4 needs to get multiplied into both things, so that becomes 8y minus 16. Let's combine our like terms. So 8 minus 3 is 5y. Let's move the 16. 5y equals 25. Divide by 5. So y equals 5. So going back to my question, it wanted the y value, so I don't even need to finish solving the system. I already got my y value. Y is 5. And last problem, what is the solution to the following systems of equations? So again, here are our equations. We want to find a solution. Both of them are in standard form, so x and y are on the same side. I need to rearrange one of them to where a single letter is by itself. Since this x doesn't have a coefficient, this is going to be the easiest one to rearrange. So x plus 2y equals 4. If I wanted x to be by itself, I would subtract the 2y from both sides. So that means that x equals 4 minus 2y. So now I'm going to get what I just found, and I'm going to plug it in to where the x is on the first equation. So 3 parentheses 4 minus 2y, we're plugging in our expression. Then the rest of it can keep going. Plus 6y equals 12. Now let's distribute. 12 minus 6y plus 6y equals 12. Combine our like terms. So the second one and the third one both have y, so we can put those together. But for us, we have negative 6 plus 6. That's just 0, so they cancel each other out. And all that I'm left with is 12 equals 12. So that is a true statement, right? 12 does equal 12. So when that happens, that means that this system has infinitely many solutions. Okay, guys, and that is it for our review. If you notice, I did only what was on the left side. So for practice, you can go back and try working out all of the problems that are on the right side. Okay, bye everyone.